Hi, I'm Suzanne Sakaria, and today I'm going to be taking you through this presentation made for InfoSecurity Europe London 2023. We're going to be answering the question, does every instance of malware really matter? For those of you not familiar with Jamf, we are a management and security company that helps organizations succeed with Apple. We bridge the gap between what Apple creates and what organizations require. So before we explore, does every instance of malware really matter, we need to understand the threat landscape and how and why Apple devices are being targeted compared to other operating systems. Firstly, are Apple devices under threat? What's the perception here? Here are some examples from our Threat Labs team. They're a team of threat hunters, malware analysts, specialists, all detecting known and new types of malware. Recently, they discovered a Mac malware family that was communicating with command and control servers to download and execute various payloads. Jamf tracks and protects against this malware family under the name Rust Bucket, and our Threat Labs team suspect it to be attributed to a North Korean state-sponsored threat actor. The APT group called Blue Noroff is thought to act as a subgroup to the well-known Lazarus group, and they're believed to be behind this attack. This is due to similarities noted in a Kaspersky blog entry documenting the attack on the Windows side. The similarities include malicious tooling and on the Mac side that closely aligns with the workflow and the social engineering patterns for those employed in the campaign. And during routine monitoring on our threat detections, when we look in the wild, we encountered an alert indicating XMRig usage, a command line crypto mining tool. Now, XMRig is commonly used for legitimate purposes. It's adaptable, and its open source design has really made it a popular choice for malicious actors as well, though. And in this particular instance, we were particularly interested in it because it was executed under the guise of an Apple-developed video editing software called Final Cut Pro. Further investigation revealed that this malicious version of Final Cut Pro contained a modification unauthorized by Apple that was executing XMRig in the background. At the time of our discovery, this particular sample was not detected as malicious by any security vendors on VirusTotal. A new Mac malware variant dubbed MacStealer has also been discovered and linked to a threat actor distributing malicious codes via the dark web. This stealer can extract a variety of files, browser cookies, and login information from a victim system. It also has the ability to collect passwords, cookies, and credit card data from popular browsers like Firefox, Google Chrome, and Brave. MacStealer targets Mac operating systems running Catalina and subsequent versions on Intel M1 and M2 CPUs. It's expected to be more widespread due to its high demand among threat actors. MacStealer communicates with command and control servers via Telegram channels, utilizing the popular messaging platform known for its privacy protections for its operations. And let's not forget mobile malware. Jamf Threat Labs has been studying the ongoing use of sophisticated spyware, including indicators previously attributed to the NSO's Pegasus, to target iPhones by high-risk individuals. Over a period of 6 months, Jamf Threat Labs investigated multiple mobile devices belonging to different individuals and multiple mobile devices to include indicators of compromise, called IOCs, and evidence of active spyware campaigns. So we know that that Apple devices are being targeted. So the next question is, why are they being targeted? Well, Mac's popularity in the enterprise cannot be underestimated. In fact, 84% of the world's most innovative companies deploy Mac at scale, according to a recent study performed by Apple. Put simply, as Apple devices continue to increase in popularity, the prevalence of threats will also continue to increase. And ultimately, as each generation joins the workforce, this trend is only going one way. Based on a study from Student Monitor, 66% of college students are coming into your workforce using a Mac. Jamf also released a study focused on the influence of device choice in the enterprise, and 67% of respondents would be more likely and stay with a business that offered this choice. So it's clear that our end users prefer using Mac, and there are some other tangible benefits to an organization to choose Apple. Firstly, the Forrester data on the left of your screen highlights the benefits of Mac in the enterprise. There has long been this misconception that Mac is more expensive, but time and time again, we're seeing that this isn't the case. In fact, you can see that Forrester found that Mac offers significant cost savings over a PC equivalent system, more than 300% ROI over 3 years, and increased or improved employee retention and productivity. When users are allowed to work in the way that's best for them, they're more productive and they stick around. Additionally, in the Hobson and Company data on the right, this shows that there are further benefits to using Jamf to support your Apple deployments. We regularly hear from our financial service customers that rolling out Mac is faster and easier than PC, resulting in significant cost and labor savings, while maintaining the highest levels of security and regulatory compliance. You can see significant time savings across the board, from initial provisioning to ongoing device and app management. The bottom line here is, when an organization chooses to deploy Apple, it saves them time and it saves them money. So as Apple grows in the enterprise, it's inevitable that targeted attacks are going to occur. As such, over the past few years, we've seen a dramatic increase in the amount of Mac-specific or Mac-supporting malware detected in the wild. Apple's ever-continuing effort to harden and make the Mac operating system the most secure device platform out there has caused a trailing increase in the sophistication of the kinds of attacks that are being observed and the use of malware on the Mac platform. It's become a game of cat and mouse, with Apple elevating the security of the platform and forcing malware actors to invest more time, more money, more resources into developing ways to either circumvent these protections or use social engineering to trick users into downloading things. And just as Jamf has rapidly adopted the M1 Apple Silicon architecture of our products, so did malware actors. It only took a couple of weeks to see the first types of malware appear that had native support for universal binaries, a clear indicator that bad actors are paying attention to these developments and clearly see enough return on investment for continuing to adapt attacks to significant platform changes such as these. In addition, mobile use in the enterprise is following a similar trend, and we see more and more mobiles being used for work and having more access to more sensitive business applications. And so the attack surfaces increase further. I do a lot of my work on mobile devices, I'm sure you do too, and they have access to a lot of sensitive data. So it makes sense for hackers to target these devices. And with the number of threat vectors out there for mobile, content risks, app risk, infrastructure attacks, risky configurations, and phishing, we're really expanding the threat vectors here. So we've shown that Apple devices are increasingly being targeted. So how is the security community responding? Well, this survey from VirusTotal showed that actually less than half of Mac malware samples studied over a 12-month period were known by at least one security vendor. So what does that mean? It means that not only are attackers targeting Apple due to its popularity, but they're doing so because they know it's not necessarily getting the best appropriate protection from security tools. Now, we know that Apple devices are being targeted and we understand why. So what can we do about it? First, let's have a look at some of the features that are natively available within Apple's operating system. I'm not going to highlight them all, otherwise we'll definitely run over our time period, and you'll see why on the next slide. There are a huge number of things that Apple has natively on the device to help keep these secure. As we said before, Apple is the most secure operating system out there. These built-in features like hardware verified secure boot, on-the-fly encryption, Touch ID, Gatekeeper. You also have features like an endpoint security API offered by Apple to help endpoint security vendors get access to the various system events. For apps, Apple has app notarization, where an app developer notarizes their app, which can be mandatory before distribution. And for data, Mac has the built-in runtime protection, and they did this a long time ago. So system files, resources, kernels are all cryptographically separate from the user space. And for iOS, there's an identity verification process by Apple before the developers' certificates are issued. The outcome here is that all apps in the App Store are created by known, identified developers. Apple reviews each application and subsequent updates before they're pushed to devices. They can revoke certificates for developers if the certificates end up being in the wrong hands. Apps on iOS, iPadOS are all sandboxed, so they can't operate outside of their own app. And apps that use entitlements, permissions like camera, location, Microsoft, etc., microphone, etc. They all have to be approved by Apple, and depending on the entitlement that's used, depending on the entitlement or the permissions being used in those apps, and depending on that, they'll have extra security or extra scrutiny. And these entitlements, the user always has to approve them. They always have to click accept. iOS will remind users of the entitlement settings from time to time. And you might see this when you log into your application and it says you have to approve an app to track, for example. So where does Jamf come in? There are some key areas that we've highlighted where Jamf before on what the problem is. And here are 4 key areas that we can look at where Jamf can really help to enhance the native security with Apple. Compliance, leveraging the native security technologies within Apple, setting malware protections, blocking known and unknown malware, understanding the threat landscape of your applications, and ensuring you and your end users' data is protected. Let's start by hardening the device and leveraging the native security technologies. Now, compliance management starts by establishing and maintaining secure baselines, making sure that your devices are a good standard before you start putting things on there, making sure that your mobile configurations monitor for your local standards or organizational standards, and setting remediation options to address risk. Now, these security features are only effective if you're actually utilizing them in their latest version across every one of your devices. And this is often not the case. Jamf offers controls like basic things such as password settings and updates, but also unique to Apple and Mac specific checks like whether file vault is enabled, whether your keychain has been locked for inactivity, and whether built-in features like Gatekeeper are set to their optimal configuration. And this doesn't only apply to Mac endpoints. The mobile threat defense side of the offering offers similar capabilities to manage mobile configuration vulnerabilities like out-of-date operating systems, monitor for jailbreaks, device configurations, device encryption, lock screens, app developer mode settings, third-party app store checks, and those are just a few of the things that we offer. Next, protecting against known and unknown malware. In addition to our Threat Labs team and their research, we have purpose-built Mac and mobile security that includes compliance functionality, endpoint protection and anti-malware, DNS filtering too. So you can ensure that your devices are protected from the device level and the network level, while also setting configurations and policies to ensure that any sites or apps that shouldn't be allowed, that don't comply by your company policy, will be blocked to the user with clear notifications and communications for the user so they know exactly why they can't access these sites. Let's take a look at the user experience here when our security solution, Jamf Protect, blocked some known malware from executing. This is an example by the known malware Gravity Rat, we can see here that the user executes the malware on the device and Mac responds by requesting the user to confirm a second time whether they want to allow it. The native security protection from Gatekeeper is doing this, but we can see that the user is able to override it. And we can report on this with a unified log filter. So the user overrides it and continues. Very quickly, we see that the malware is prevented from executing because Jamf Protect has scanned and identified it as a known threat. And as you can see, it's advising the user as such. We see the alert inside Jamf Protect that was generated by this event containing information such as host information and the user involved, the path to the malware file that has been detected, the name of the malware and the threat signature attached. And in the background, the malware has been quarantined and the threat has been neutralized. We've also recently acquired a company called ZecOps, which now adds advanced detection and response capabilities to our platform with a proven track record in detecting sophisticated attacks such as Pegasus, among many others. So why is it important to have a dedicated Apple security tool? We reviewed Windows threat vectors within the MITRE attack framework, and there were areas of the Windows platform that many techniques seem to be focused on. So we counted them. Now, when you look at the overall, there are 135 unique to Windows operating system techniques and sub-techniques that attackers may use, including the above: Windows registry, DLL, native Windows binaries, but also there are many others. Now, as we look at each of these lined up again, there is something very special that we should talk about. Windows registry doesn't exist on Mac, and therefore a Mac endpoint security product shouldn't be looking at these techniques. The same for DLL and others, once again highlighting how a Mac endpoint security solution shouldn't be looking at these, or don't even need to look for these kinds of threats, because they won't be around on your Mac devices. Which, compared to Mac, you can see that there are few technologies that are specific to Mac, highlighting how important it is to have a solution that knows how Apple works, knows how Mac operates, and therefore knows how hackers will want to target these devices. Now, we do understand the challenges of managing two products for Apple and for Windows, which is why we have such a big focus on our integrations, in particular with Microsoft. For example, we can integrate with conditional access or send threat events and data to Sentinel so that you can work easily in both systems. Now, we need to consider all app-based risks. I've got a few here. There are thousands that we could mention. Firstly, TikTok being talked about by many governments around the world as to whether it should be allowed by corporate devices. The La Liga app, which was a Spanish football league app that asked for those permissions that we talked about earlier. It was asking users to give access to location services and to microphone when users were downloading this app to see the football scores. Now, you might be thinking, why would a football app need access to those permissions? Well, and that's a common question, but when users are downloading this app, they're not necessarily thinking about security. So users click accept just to get to the information that they want. What this app was doing was using location services and microphone to see if the user was in a pub or a bar. If the user was in a pub or a bar, it would then turn on the microphone to see if the pub was playing the football. And then it would cross-reference that recording to see if the pub had a license to show the football. What we're trying to say here is that users' mobile devices were being used as spyware to help prevent piracy. And with Apple reportedly preparing to allow third-party app stores into for the iPhone, will that bring extra risk? Difficult to know at this stage. As always, Jamf is here to help. We are uniquely positioned to block all social media services like TikTok, Facebook, whatever you doesn't abide by your company policy. This shows how our software is capable of doing so, using not only our security solutions, but also our management capability as well. Within our management portal, you can block applications from being downloaded. Here we use TikTok as an example, as well as Instagram and Facebook. Once this has been saved, we'll show how the user tries to go to the App Store to download these applications. Once they type in TikTok and attempt to download it, they'll be met with a notification explaining why they can't access that site. Now you might be thinking, okay, the app is blocked, but can't a user go to the browser and access the site there? And you'd be absolutely right. Here you can see the user clicking on their browser, typing in tiktok.com, and they get access to that site. So this shows us we need to apply content filtering as well as having the controls in the management side. Now, in our cloud security portal, you can set these controls. Here you can see a list of categories to block any sites that don't comply with your company policy. And within this, we can then set a block policy for Facebook and for TikTok. Once again, as soon as these features are saved, they'll be applied instantly. So now when the user tries to go to that site again, they'll again be met with another notification, this time at the browser level as opposed to the app level, so that they know exactly why they can't access that site. In addition, we give you visibility into what apps are installed and what the apps have access to and any associated vulnerabilities attached to it. You can make sure that they don't have a vulnerable version installed. You can even see what permissions they have. So you can monitor that and make sure that you don't have any vulnerabilities from that perspective too. And lastly, we want to prevent end user exploitation. In a recent survey that we did with Verizon, we found that 61% of people let their friends and family use their work devices. Have you ever seen a mobile device with no passcode? Well, this is exactly why. They want their devices to be easy to hand off to their friends and family so they can have access to. This is a security risk. This is a case for compliance and policy. 28% of corporate devices run a vulnerable operating system. If you're running a vulnerable operating system, you're making it very easy to exploit your device. And lastly, 37% of companies reported using whole disk encryption of laptops. Again, this means you're creating a vulnerable atmosphere for your devices. Our mobile and Mac solutions are uniquely positioned to notify users if there is a threat or a vulnerability on their device. And if they click on any suspicious links, they'll be informed immediately. Here, a user has clicked on a phishing link in an email. We recognize that this site is malicious by doing a number of things in real time, even if we've never seen the site before. The user is notified and they have clear instructions as to why they can't access that site. Here you can see it happening on a mobile device as well, a phishing attack delivered through text message. Now, many organizations will deliver phishing training. Don't respond to emails from people that you don't know. Maybe they'll try to get you to click on the link. And a lot of the education is centered around email. but actually over 80% of phishing attacks happen outside of email, where users are less likely to be looking out for these kinds of threats. However the phishing attack is trying to be delivered, Jamf will be able to protect your users and your data by using our endpoint and network security. And this also applies to BYOD environments with the use of account-driven user enrollment, where business and personal data is partitioned so that personal data is untouched and business data is sent via a secure VPN tunnel, making sure that all of your policies can live in the work area of the device, and all a user's personal information, their messages, their dating apps will not be accessible to the business, keeping the user information private and keeping your business data safe. So to end the presentation, a reminder of who we are. Jamf is here to bridge the gap between what Apple creates and what enterprises require. You can see from this presentation that we have a number of capabilities to ensure that we are protecting, securing, and helping to manage your devices. And we deliver this through our concept called Trusted Access. Trusted Access is our vision for delivering an experience that your users love while creating a workplace that organizations trust. Everything here is available through the Jamf platform. It combines the best elements of device management, identity and access controls, and endpoint security. And the best thing about having everything here all together is that if something goes wrong, and inevitably it will do, we can automate and remediate back through the management system, getting your users up and running as quickly as possible. And this is where other solutions fall down when you stapled all these different solutions together, where they don't communicate, they don't integrate in the way that they should. Your user could be down for hours, and that's not a problem with our solution, where automation and remediation options are simple and fast. As a result, Trusted Access means that only authorized users on enrolled devices that are secure and compliant will be able to access your sensitive data. So, does every instance of malware really matter? If you have a setup like this, where only those authorized users have access to your sensitive data, maybe every instance doesn't matter. But if so, we have the right solutions for you. Jamf has been around for more than 20 years. Today, we support more than 72,500 customers in many different countries. Our customers include 7 of the top technology companies in the world, 9 of the largest organizations in the world, and 22 of the most valuable brands. We've seen Apple adoption take off over the last few years, and the workplace has been transformed by Apple. So we have expanded our capabilities to not only manage your devices, but secure your devices, your data, and your users too. Historically, we have been focused on Apple. As you can see from this slide, we've expanded our capabilities so that we support your BYOD users as well. So that, as we saw from the previous slide, only authorized users on verified devices have access to your data. Thank you for your time.